So welcome to Green Drinks, everyone here. My name is Ginevra. I'm the program director at Sustainable Woodstock. We were founded in 2009, and we're a nonprofit community and environmental action and education organization. We build on Woodstock's legacy as the birthplace of the modern environmental and conservation movement. So you have come to one of our monthly Green Drinks. These are educational events we host typically on the third Thursday of every month to connect people with similar interests and to educate the community about local sustainability initiatives and things they can get involved in and learn about. Right now, our Green Drinks are primarily virtual. This summer, we will be hosting some in-person Green Drinks for topics where that's very relevant. So typically outdoors in-person events. So keep an eye out for that. So I'm gonna read your bio now, Ham. Don't leave me. And introduce you. I should say this is, I think, the third time that I have had Ham presenting at Green Drinks since I've been with Sustainable Woodstock. And he's always a popular presenter because people, I think, carry these questions around with him in the back of their head, and then they see a chance to ask them. So it's exciting to have you back, Ham. I'm going to read your bio now. Ham Gillett is the Vermont Act.
Gillett, Ginevra, you should know that.
I know, I do it every time. It's Gillett like skillet, but I do the emphasis.
Yeah,
on
fine.
No one can say in my name either. Ham Gillett is the Vermont Act 148 outreach coordinator for 2 solid waste districts. He has more than 15 years of experience in solid waste and recycling and is a certified Vermont master composter. 30 years ago, he helped start a small solid waste / recycling company when Woodstock first mandated recycling. He was responsible for educating residents and businesses in several surrounding communities about recycling basics. More recently, Ham has sorted through trash on the National Mall, rotting restaurant food waste in South Bronx, and chased a trash truck through multiple red lights in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. He has spoken to numerous schools, businesses, and civic organizations about solid waste, recycling, hazardous waste, and composting issues. So Ham is your go-to guy, and I'm thrilled to have him with us tonight, and I will let you take it away, Ham.
Thank you, Ginevra. Thanks for inviting me. And hi, everybody. It's fun seeing seeing a lot of either faces to names that I know but don't know your faces, or faces and names that I do know. Hi, everybody. As I say this, I was just chatting with Ginevra. Usually when I start these things, I say, I'm not going to talk for very long, and I want to answer your questions. That's basically why I'm here. So I really am going to try not to talk very long, and so that we can answer any questions, and I'm even can address your frustrations as well, as long as I have something to do with solid waste or recycling or hazardous waste. Let's see. I say that because I think most people who are even on Sustainable Woodstock's radar or in tune to these sort of things, I make the assumption that you know the very basics, that Vermont has a universal recycling law, you know what's required, and if you have questions about that and I'm making the wrong assumption, put it in the chat. But I'm not going to go through all of that. I will touch on some of it as I present, but I'm sure that most of the questions you ask me will also touch on those things. So just to start off with, there are a couple of things that are subjects that are foremost on my mind, and I would like to get them off my chest, as it were. The biggest one that just seemed, because it's been, I've been dealing with a lot at work, is hazardous waste. Right now in the legislature, there is a hazardous waste extended producer responsibility going through the House and Senate, and I'm not going to get into that really, but I just want to tell you that the issue with hazardous waste in all over the place, but in Vermont specifically, because that's what we're talking about, it has become outrageously expensive to dispose of. For example, the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste Management District in 2022, we had we're required to have 2 hazardous waste collections a year. And so we had 2. We had one in July and one in September. We paid $82,000 for 2 4-hour events. Now, granted, we collaborated with the town of Hartford on that because we hold them at the Hartford transfer station, but they were a smaller percentage of participants than the number of GUV participants. In September, we paid our vendor $16,000 just for a setup fee. That's for them to bring their trucks, put up their tents, lay out their plastic and their containers. People's eyes bug out when I say that, as well they should. And we just got a letter from the same vendor saying that for 2023, their prices are going to increase 11%. So there are fewer and fewer vendors in the Northeast that are doing this. They are buying up each other, as is happening with everything. There are supply chain issues, there are labor issues, and then bottom line is they drive this material, depending on what it is, all over the country to some place that will take it and burn it in a facility. So there's transportation costs. So I want to urge all of you, and I'm sure, again, most of you are already doing this, but please spread the word. If you need something, a cleaning agent or something to get rid of a wasp nest or ants, try to figure out an alternative to a toxic chemical. It is so easy to walk into a hardware store and there are shelves and shelves of things that you can do it. You can kill wasps with really quick. You can kill weeds in your lawn, whatever. All of that stuff ends up at a hazardous waste facility, and we pay to get rid of it. We pay $81,000. So next time you go to a hardware store and you're about to grab for a can of Raid or ant traps or whatever, just think about that. There are tons of things on the website. If you Google alternatives to, how can I get rid of ants in my kitchen? And so that's part of my soapbox. The other part of that is that we take an enormous amount of paint at our hazardous waste collections. I am asking you all, and please spread this word as well, please do not bring your paint to a hazardous waste collection. There are participating hardware stores in Vermont that will take your paint through the Paint Care program. If you Google Paint Care Vermont, you will find a store locator. The Hartford transfer station will take your paint as long as you're going to pay something to use their facility, but the disposal of the paint is free. The exception to that is if your paint can is rusted or it's leaking. At that point, your paint can becomes hazardous waste. And then I ask you, please do bring it to the hazardous waste collection. But if it's a perfectly good can of paint, oil or latex or deck stain, it has the label on it, it's not rusted, it's not leaking, please try to utilize one of these stores or the Hartford transfer station. I think it's really convenient if people are bringing stuff to the hazardous waste collection anyway, to just dump it all in the back of your car and have some guy in a white suit take it all away for you. And it's very convenient. But when you think about the labor that's involved in handling all of that paint, they put it all in these gigantic, they're called Gaylord boxes. And they put them in a storage area at the Hartford transfer station. and then a truck from Paint Care comes and picks up all that paint. And I understand that 75% of that paint is reused. So another reason, when you bring it to a hazardous waste collection, it's not going to get taken away in the hazardous waste truck, but it's being handled by the hazardous waste team. And it slows down the process. A lot of you, I'm sure, have been to one of our collections where you sit in line a long time to wait. So it's another reason not to bring your paint. If you have questions about that, please feel free to call me or email me. I'm happy to talk about it further, but I wanted to get that out. Let's see. I did all that. I did the way. The other thing is my colleague Mary O'Brien, who does my job in the Southern Windsor district, which is from Windsor down to Rockingham. They now have a depot where you can drop off your hazardous waste in the warm months. It's in Springfield. If you don't live in one of the Southern Windsor, Windham County district towns, you can't go. But she tells me that people bring in boxes full of unopened motor oil, Windex, whatever. And when she tells them that, ask them, well, why don't you give this to somebody? It never occurs to people. Or again, it's easier to just bring it in a box and give it to somebody else. But all that Windex is going to be treated as hazardous waste, and it doesn't need to be. So if you've got paint or something in your under your sink that you don't want to use anymore, or you bought too many of them, give them away. Put it on listserv before you bring it all to a hazardous waste collection. Okay, boy, I covered a whole page worth of information here. I told you about the EPR legislation, and then I didn't really follow up on it. But anyway, what's happening in the state is that you're all familiar with Paint Care, and that you can get rid of your electronics, and you can get rid of your batteries, and you can get rid of your fluorescent bulbs. Well, the state is now pushing to make manufacturers of all of these hazardous materials responsible for the end of life, and that's called extended producer responsibility. That's what goes on with paint and batteries. If you want to sell batteries or paint in the state of Vermont, you pay into a fund, or if you buy your paint in Vermont, you pay 99 cents extra for a can of paint, and that helps fund the paint recycle program. So that is what's happening in Montpelier. It's a big deal for us because you and your communities and your solid waste districts are paying enormous amounts of money to get rid of this stuff. And we feel that if you're going to manufacture it, you should help fund its end of life. End of story. Okay. Let's see. One thing I'm going to ask people about is I'm aware that a lot of people are frustrated with composting, particularly when they're doing it in their backyard and the bears are walking off with their dog or their composter or whatever. And I'm hoping that people will put something in the chat about that, because it's a huge problem. Bears are a huge problem. And we're getting to the season where they're coming out of hibernation, if they ever went into it this winter. And I can offer some suggestions, but I guess my point is I have the sense that there are a lot of people who have given up. And I want to hear from you, because number one, we can figure out something that will work for you. Number two, it is part of the universal recycling law, and it is against the law in Vermont to throw food scraps other than bones and meat in your composting. So let's chat about that. And Two other things. I just did one of these last week with my colleagues in the Chittenden Solid Waste District, and we did it under the auspices of the newly formed Vermont Sustainable Libraries Working Group. So we had people calling in from all over the state. And I was telling Ginevra, we had about 35 questions, but they addressed five subjects. And one of the things that came up a lot was, is my recycling really getting recycled? And do I put my caps on, or do I take my caps off my containers before I put them in my recycling? What I got from that session from the folks at Chittenden, and they are the mother of all recycling, just solid waste districts in the state, that it is okay to keep your caps on your water bottles or whatever, secure them so they don't fall off as they're riding up the conveyor belt going into the sorting facility. The bottles will get crushed, the caps will come off, and I am told that at the end of the line, all of those caps are being landing end up in one place, and they are being recycled. They are made of a resin that is recyclable. So that's my story about that. I was going to tell you about a couple of events that are happening, and I think rather than racing through them at the end of this, I'm going to tell you now while you're all still with me. Hope you're all still with me. Styrofoam, as you know, a lot of people are very frustrated with not being able to recycle styrofoam. There is a collection at the Cornish, New Hampshire Recycling Center, if you'd like to go to Cornish, on Saturday, March 25th. It's running from 9 to 2, which is when their facility is open, and they have told me that they will take it from anybody. You don't have to be from Cornish. That's one option. Then on Saturday, April 1st, the Lebanon Sustainability Group and the Lebanon Rotary are running it's either their third or their fourth collection event. It's going to be behind Jake's Coffee and Car Wash in Lebanon, which is across the street from Gardener's Supply. That is only open from 9 to 11. It is very busy. We collect an enormous amount of styrofoam, but you are welcome to come to that one as well. I will be sending out things on the listserv, and there'll be things in the paper probably, but just remember that we're looking for styrofoam blocks, packaging blocks. We cannot take peanuts. We cannot take anything that's soft and squishy. It has to really be, when you look at it closely, it's got the little tiny beads in it. We also cannot take insulating like foam board. So this is packing material only. Again, happy to answer questions if you want to call me or email me about that, but that is April 1st. I have a few composters for sale still. The place where we used to buy them was in Bush Systems. It's in Canada. They are no longer making these, so we couldn't buy any more. They're soil savers. I have 38 in my storage area in Ascutney. If anybody wants one, they're $65. And I may or may not be driving them around in my truck to different towns this year. So let me know if you want one. And one last thing, and I really am going to stop. A week from this Saturday, the 25th, there are two repair fairs happening. One is in Randolph at the Bethany Church from, I'm not sure of the hours, but if you Google the initials BALE Vermont, you will find all the information, and kind of fascinating. These are things that are popping up all over the state. in church basements where people can bring in a sewing machine or a broken zipper or a chair with a leg broken off, and they have volunteers come in and they will fix this item for you at no charge. So very cool. There's one in Randolph. There's also one happening in Virgins, if you happen to be in Virgins, and you can find out information about that through the Addison County Solid Waste District. Addison County Solid Waste District. Okay, I'm done.
Everyone, I'm happy to listen to you talk, Ham. I learned something new every time.
That's scary. Okay.
I know, isn't it terrifying? We do have some questions in the chat right now already. One that no one else can see because it was sent directly to me. But everyone on this call, please do feel free to put your questions in the chat if you weren't on earlier when I suggested you do so. If you aren't seeing the chat, you can run your cursor over the screen. You should see a chat bubble. If not, there's a button that has a ... more. And if you click on that, you should be able to select chat. If you get hopelessly lost, raise your hand on your camera and I'll try and help you. If I see you, I'll look out for it. So the first, there are two that are in a direct message to me, but I'll read the first one to you here, Ham. Where should we recycle fire extinguishers?
I don't know. I get that question a lot. The Hartford transfer station will take your fire extinguishers. I always encourage people, and you'll probably be considered a pain in the neck, but I always encourage people to take it back. If you didn't buy it online, take it back to the brick and mortar store and say, how do I get rid of this? And why don't you take it back? You sold it. So the Hartford transfer station is probably your best bet at the moment.
All right. Where is the best place to return bottles and cans that are returnable?
Depends on where you live. I understand that the redemption center at the Hartford transfer station, they are two completely separate entities. I understand that they have been closed. If anybody on this Zoom can tell me, update me on that, I'd be happy to know. But that is the closest place in the Upper Valley. There's also a redemption center in Ascutney at exit 8. If you either come down Route 5 or come down 91, get off at exit 8, take a left like you're going to Claremont, and there's a Sunoco station, and then right beyond it is called the Exit 8 Restaurant, ATE, get it? And right behind that, there is a redemption center, and I don't, off the top of my head, know the hours, but you could Google redemption centers, Ascutney, Vermont, and probably find it. If anybody else on this call knows of any places that I haven't mentioned, please let me know. Let everybody know.
Thank you, Ham. Somebody asked, see, now I have to go find it. When you had mentioned bears and compost before, someone said, please talk about bears and compost. Yes, all in caps. And then someone followed up, is it best to use composting stations rather than personal composting to reduce bear issues? So you might want to go ahead and tackle the whole bear thing.
Okay, I'll bear everything. If you want to compost in your backyard, there are a couple of things that I suggest you do. One is, my number one rule is when you look in your compost pile, you should never see any food scraps. Your food scraps should always be completely covered with dead brown material, shredded leaves, sawdust, wood chips, pine needles, whatever. But that will first of all, keep it out of sight. It also will cut down on the aroma a lot. Number two, a lot of people who live out in the woods, they just throw their food scraps in the woods. I don't think that's a good idea, because it teaches all sorts of wildlife that they can get food from humans. And that is not a good thing. When we first passed this law, we had a meeting with all of my colleagues around the state, and Forrest Hammond, who some of you might know, is now retired from the Fish and Game Department. He said to us, I hope this composting law fails miserably, because there's nothing worse than having bears specifically learn a connection between humans and food. And he was right in a lot of ways, but here we are. Another thing is a lot of people are putting up a simple strand of electric fence, solar powered electric fence around their compost area. Hang little pieces of aluminum foil off the wire, bait it with bacon fat or peanut butter. The bear will come and touch that with its tongue or its nose and get zapped. And I'm told that bears have very good memories and they will not come back. You all know, of course, that bears are initially drawn to people's yards because of birdseed. A black bear can smell black oil sunflower seed from 1 mile away. And once they're there in your yard, it's hard to get rid of them. And if there's once they've eaten your bird seed, they're just going to go and look for something else they can eat. So the third thing is they hate ammonia. Soak a rag in ammonia, put it on your composter or tie it to your composter. Try that. And I started in on the don't put an open pile of food scraps in your yard or in the woods. If you live around other people, there are certain molds that grow in compost piles that are lethal to dogs. I know of 2 dogs that have died from getting into somebody else's compost pile. So I hope that helps, and good luck. Oh, the other half of that question, yes. Some people have given up on backyard composting and are now taking their food scraps to a drop-off location, which is great. A little bit bigger carbon footprint, and it might be costing you something, but it's one way to get the food scraps off your property. And if you take your food scraps to a drop-off, that you can include your meat scraps and bones, because that compost, if you take your food scraps to a drop-off location, those food scraps are going to go to a commercial composting facility where the temperature of the pile gets up to a minimum of 144 degrees, which is said to kill all pathogens. That will not happen in your backyard. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Ham, for that very nuanced answer. You have addressed, no, but it's needed. And you have addressed one of my pet peeves, which is people leaving bird feeders up into warm season. So, all right. Well, post in the chat if you have follow-up on that. I'm going to go to the next. Oh dear, where'd it go? There we go. Next question. Last year, Maine passed an extended producer responsibility law, making producers of packaging pay to recycle products. Is this in the works in Vermont?
Yes, Maine beat us to it, but it's essentially the same idea. And I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what the extent of Maine's law, but I believe they are the first state in the country to actually get that passed.
Thank you. What happens to all the electronics that are dropped off at transfer stations?
Good question. Those electronics are picked up by a company called Good Point Recycling. They are based in Middlebury. They're an amazing company if you want to Google them. Good Point Recycling. They have a large facility outside of Boston. I think it's in, I'm not going to say, I was going to say Charlestown, but it's not. They dismantle all of the electronics. They take them all apart. Most every part of that electronic, that television, that CRT, that laptop is reused. They also fund their operation by resale. They take a lot of, people are always dropping off things that are perfectly good, and they've got a whole team of people who are pulling those things out of the truck and scrubbing them clean and then reselling them. But they're terrific.
Thanks, Ham. We host Sustainable Woodstock hosts a yearly electronics recycling event in Woodstock with Good Point.
Yep.
They are terrific. That'll be in the fall. No date set yet. Next question here. Is there a way to recycle clothes that are too beat up to give away, or cloth like old drapes, torn blankets, etc.? That's the first part of it. I'll ask the first part.
Okay. Yes, I always direct, if you have towels and t-shirts and ripped sheets, animal shelters love towels. Your local mechanic loves sheets and some t-shirts. They pay a lot of money to buy a bag of rags, and don't show up and dump it off, but ask them, and I'll bet you they'll say, yes, we would be happy to have that. And of course, they probably would love you to tear up the sheets into rag-side pieces first, but I do that with my stuff. There also, as I just learned this yesterday, there is a new company that's based in New Hampshire. It's called Apparel Impact. You may have seen their clothing containers around. They're popping up everywhere. They have just purchased a company called Helpsy, and they are making once a week pickups in all of their locations in Vermont. They're expanding a lot and quite rapidly. They will take any materials any textiles that are clean. They can be ripped, they can be not wearable, but they will take it. And again, they provide, the guy who owns it is a vet. And so a lot of their clothing goes to vets, and a lot more to people in the community who need clothing. So yeah, the textile market is back. It tanked a couple of years ago, and I think it's back. And that's what I would do with it. Salvation Army also, I'm told, will take unwearable clothing. They ask that you clean it and put it in a bag and mark it as such. But again, always good to call ahead and ask.
And what was the name of the company that has the bins again?
Apparel Impact.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sam. The second part of the question is rather unrelated. That's why I'm asking it separately.
Yep.
I have a few quarts of old screws or nails that don't meet the 2 inches square rule. Can they be recycled as scrap metal?
Yes, but not with your recycling. They would need to go to, let's see, I think the Norwich transfer station has a scrap metal container. This is not for, tin cans and cat food cans. It's for scrap metal, old sap buckets and stuff. Let's see, what else? I think the Hartford transfer station also has I know they have a scrap metal container. I know a lot of people are using the Lebanon facility now, and I don't know if they have a scrap metal container now. You can go on their website and find out. Yes, they're perfectly recyclable, but not with your household metal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Where to dispose of alkaline batteries in New Hampshire?
That's a bone I have to pick with New Hampshire. I just went on the Home Depot recycling website yesterday, and I believe that Home Depot takes alkaline batteries. Again, you might want to double check, but I'm pretty sure. I was looking at, I was on there for another reason, and that just happened to fly across the screen. But New Hampshire, unfortunately, is a little bit behind Vermont in special recycling, like batteries and some light bulbs and electronics. They're catching up, but if you have somebody who, a friend who lives in Vermont, ask them, because there are lots of places in Vermont to recycle batteries. You might also just ask at your local transfer station, see if they will take them.
Thank you, Ham. This one is multi-part, but it's in response to your fire extinguisher thoughts. Can Ham tell us more about fire extinguishers? Why go to the store? As an activist, who should we talk to? Management? And then what does the Hartford transfer station do with them, and is there a fee?
I believe the Hartford transfer station does charge for them. We, the solid waste district, do not run the Hartford transfer station, and they changed their prices and their policies. So best thing to do is call the Scale House. And if you had a pen, I'll tell you that number. It's 802-295-2673. That is the Scale House. And I think I hope you all know that the Hartford transfer station has just reduced its hours. I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. I know it's Tuesday and Saturday. There's another day in there, but that's the number to call to ask them what they charge. As far as I know, I mean, I have been told that you can empty your own fire extinguisher, that's into a wastebasket or a plastic bag. That stuff is not toxic, and then throw it in scrap metal. Depending on the town, some people will take it, some people won't. It's kind of an ambiguous answer, but try the Hartford transfer station. And I would say, yes, if you walk in and ask for the manager, you're being an activist, but you can be a nice activist and say, my solid waste district won't take this. How can I responsibly recycle it? Also try, Evergreen Recycling in Wilder. I don't know their number off the top of my head, but they're great. They take scrap metal, tires, appliances. Call them, ask Judy. Evergreen Recycling.
That's good to know about. All right. We're moving on to telephone poles. What do we do with a telephone pole, creosote, in parentheses, cut up in chunks, and a bag of contaminated soil from the spot where machinery dripped a little hydraulic fluid? Thanks.
How about a bonfire? Sorry.
You better quit fire joking.
That is probably would be considered, I'm not sure. I could research that, but I would call the Lebanon transfer station, Lebanon landfill, and ask them if they would consider that to be construction debris. And I don't really have a good answer for that, but I'm gonna look into that.
And I can send everyone who's on this call your email, Ham, if you want.
Please do. No,
yeah.
please do.
So if there's more follow-up on that question, I've actually got a few really, really old telephone poles I inherited that I have to get rid of. So I'd love to know the answer to that question. Myself. Can you take styrofoam to the Guilford Solid Waste Center?
Yes. Guilford, New Hampshire. That's where all of the material that's at the Cornish collection and at the Lebanon collection, and I believe at the one that just happened in Hanover, all of that material is going to Guilford because they won a big grant and purchased a densifying machine, so they can take big chunks of it and it gets thrown in this machine and it gets densified and it comes out the other end like a squishy, not squishy, it's just like a styrofoam rope. And it goes into it gets fed into a box like this until the box is full, and that's considered an ingot. And then those ingots, when they have a truckload of ingots, they get picked up by a company up in Quebec, and all of that styrofoam is made into home insulation. It's pretty cool. It also gets made into picture frames and architectural molding. If you live in a new house, if you look at the molding around your living room, that might be made out of styrofoam. So yes, Guilford will take it. I definitely call them ahead.
All right. This is someone throwing out ideas to I think the returnables question we had earlier. The M&M Redemption Center in Randolph is quick and efficient with returnables, and the WRV, White River Valley Middle School, is also collecting for a Yellowstone trip.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Next question. What about the thin plastic labels on detergent bottles that, when you read the fine print, say not recyclable, remove before recycling the bottle?
Never heard that one before. I've never heard that before. Basically, do you have to take the label off a detergent bottle? I have never heard that, and I will look into that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have either. It's interesting. Linda asked, hi Linda, is there any place/way to recycle textiles? I feel like we covered that in a different question. You might have posted that before we got there, but if you have follow-up, Linda, just like put it in the chat below if there's something Ham didn't touch on. And then someone said, last I knew, Salvation Army accepts textiles labeled, and Humane Societies take bedding and towels. So you covered that, Ham. Okay. The next question here, what about the metal or plastic rings that separate the bottle from the cap?
Leave them on. They'll come off in the process, but they won't. The problem they won't come off. They won't fall through the 2-inch grating on the conveyor belt that takes them through the processing facility. That's the big deal. They will come off in the process of being crushed and blah 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 blah. So leave them on, and unless you enjoy taking them off, then be my guest. Don't cut yourself.
That's good advice. This is making me think of my other crusade, which is I live very close to the Stratford Organic Creamery, and they do not want the plastic tops on those bottles when they are returned to them to refill with milk. So stop doing it. They've told me to make this very clear to everyone. They're just trash, unfortunately, for them when they reuse the bottles. How does zero sort recycling work? Does it work?
Yes. So, point of clarification. The generic term is single stream recycling. That's where you put all your recyclables together. And that silly idea was made because it was a way to get more Americans to recycle, because they didn't have room for 12 different containers in their kitchen, or it was too much trouble. So I didn't decide that if people could put all the recyclables in one bin and have them taken away, then that would make a lot more people recycle. And I think it probably worked to a certain degree. Casella Waste coined the term zero sort. That is they own that. So they're basically it's the same term. And I've just had a long discussion with Andy Scherer on the Norwich Solid Waste District about this. If you have your trash and recycling picked up at your house, chances are you are using single stream, because the truck doesn't have room to sort it on the truck. Mary McQuaig, you probably remember back in the day in Woodstock, where rapid raise rancid rubbish removal with Ricochet Roy riding on the right runner board, would drive around and throw the trash bag, would go in the truck, and then had all the containers on the side of the truck, and Ray would put the brown glass in one and the green glass in the other and the paper in the other one and the cardboard in the other. Those days are gone. So single stream, zero sort is what happens when you get your trash picked up at your house. If you bring your recyclables to some sort of a transfer station, chances are that transfer station is going to ask you to sort it somewhat, like cardboard in one container, mixed paper in another, glass in another, aluminum and tin in another. Now that's basically what single stream is, and it works. It's the only way you can get your trash picked up at your house. Essentially, what I said to Andy is that if you have your recyclables picked up at your house, those recyclables are going straight to the materials recovery facility in Rutland, which is owned by Casella, and all of that material is getting sorted in that building, in the MRF. If you take your materials, your recyclables, to a transfer station and you are putting them in separate containers, chances are that big 40-yard roll-off that you're throwing your cardboard in is going to be hauled straight to a cardboard processing plant and be made into more cardboard. Same with the plastic, same with the tin. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, let me know.
Fair. Thank you, Ham. This is a follow-up about the caps on bottles. What about metal caps on glass jars and bottles? Specifically metal caps that have a thin circle of rubber or vinyl to ensure a good vacuum seal.
Yeah, I knew someone was going to ask that question. I was hoping it wouldn't come up. I would say leave them on your jar or bottle.
All right, I'll trust you. And then I think Tracy, the person who asked about the label before that said, don't recycle this label, it was on the latest bottle of all detergent with the label saying you had to remove the plastic label.
That is horrible. Call the company, tell them to stop doing that. I don't mean to joke about it, but that's just like one more. How can you make it even? Let's make it easier, not harder. If the label peels off quickly, great. But how many people are going to stop and read that little writing on that label?
And I wonder if it's true everywhere or just in some places. I don't know. That's very odd.
Go to their website and send them a letter.
This is activist night for you, Ham.
Yes, it is. I'm on a roll.
I like it. So this one is marker collections at schools, which I was not aware were a thing, actually. I think they are burned for energy. Is that preferable to landfilling?
I've never heard of it. And actually, I have heard of it, but I have no idea what happens to them. Sorry.
I've never heard of it. Interesting. Oh, and Linda followed up on her textile questions. What to do with textiles like small pieces of cloth left from craft, socks not worth darning, stretched out bathing suit. So maybe smaller stuff and stranger textiles like a bathing suit.
Somebody larger might be able to wear that stretched out bathing suit. I don't, quilter, I guess if they're small pieces, put it on the listserv, Linda. If that was Linda, I see that kind of stuff on the listserv all the time. Old socks, I guess, throw them away. Bathing suit, probably throw it away.
Because there's like a size requirement, you think, for the textile collecting?
I honestly don't know. You know what you could do if you want to contact Apparel Impact? They're great people, really small company. Email them, call them and ask them, can I put my bathing suit and my small scraps in here? I'm sorry, I can't answer that because I don't know, but just call them, ask them.
Yeah. Speaking of labels that need to be removed, what about the small oval, labels on individual pieces of fruit? I think they are or contain plastic, so cannot be composted, correct?
They are plastic. They cannot be composted. Please remove them. I work with some schools, and some of the schools I work with the kids take them off. They're trained to take them off before they put their food scraps in the bin. And they make these gigantic mosaics out of all they're called PLU stickers. So it's a great art project. But no, they're part of the ubiquitous plastic pollution on the planet. They will go straight through a chicken and come out the other end. So please take them off.
I'm glad you know that. Is corrugated cardboard recycled differently than cereal box cardboard?
Yes, I believe so. And I don't know what the difference is. I know that right now there's the market for corrugated cardboard is big, fluctuates, but Amazon is hungry for cardboard. And so I believe they're sorted differently. I know Norwich, I believe Norwich has a container just for corrugated cardboard. And then the box board, what I call box board, cereal box board, goes in with their mixed recycling.
I'm gonna keep going because we don't have too long left, unless you can stay late.
Don't.
I heard the black plastic is not desired in zero sort, even if it is number 5, because it cannot be sorted on the black recycling belt. Is that true? So black.
Yes, all black plastic has to go in the trash. There's an optical sorter in the recovery facility, and the optical sorter cannot read black plastic on the black conveyor belt. Also, when you mix black plastic with other colors of plastic, it turns everything gross, gray, or black, and the processors don't want it. It's a contaminant. And it's terrible because it's all over the place. I'm sure a lot of places don't. I mean, restaurants, there's a local restaurant that uses it for takeout, and I'll bet you the owners do not know that it's not recyclable because they're very conscientious, and I think they're not aware of that. I need to tell them, but no, black plastic, trash.
Thank you. Is it true that only plastic number 1 and number 2 are recyclable?
In Vermont, the law requires you to recycle all 1s and 2s. Number 5 plastic is recyclable. Casella, who runs the MRF in Chittenden County and in Rutland, they will accept number 5 plastic. So if your recyclables are going to one of those 2 facilities, chances are they are, you can put in number 5.
That makes sense. Someone says Smartwool has a sock recycling program. I don't know if that's just for Smartwool socks or all socks, but that's interesting.
I had heard that, but thank you for the reminder.
Do you know much about the ARC in Barrie? ARC being ARRC, and I know you do.
Yes, it's actually ARCC.
Oh, I was right. Okay.
Yeah, it's that stands for Additional Recycling Collection Center. It's in Barrie. It's run by the Central Vermont Solid Waste District. And I have taken things to them and told them that I'm not in their district, and they said that's fine. Google them, ARCC Vermont or ARCC Barrie, Vermont. They take all sorts of stuff, toothbrushes, toothpaste tubes, deodorant containers, CDs, cassette tapes, a lot of stuff. They charge something for it, but it does get recycled. Barrie's a long way from here, but if you're going there for another reason, load your car up, tell your friends, take their stuff too.
Great. And Linda has put the link to the Smartwool recycling program, and it's all socks. That's so exciting. I was not aware of that.
Good for darn Smartwool.
Smartwool, yeah. It's 6:30, one question left, and it's just a follow-up on the black plastic. Can the optical sorter not see other dark solid colors like solid blue bottoms of containers mushrooms are sold in, or is it only black?
I believe it's only black.
That's all I've heard too, but all right. Well, it's exactly 6:30, and that was the last question. So
wow.
I'm impressed. Thank you so much for all these questions, everyone. I learned something, like, honestly, every time we have Ham because of these questions and everything he knows. So that was really helpful. And thank you for coming, Ham.
Okay. May I just interject one quick thing if anybody wants to stay? I gave you a bunch of hypothetical questions to ask in your promotion. And I just want to go down this list to make sure that I have answered all my own questions. Where can I recycle batteries and paint? Amazed by the number of people who don't know that they can recycle batteries in this state. All batteries are recyclable. Your transfer station will take them. In any town in my district where there isn't a transfer station, I have a kitty litter bucket outside the town hall. You can put them in there. There are certain hardware stores that take them. Woodstock Ace Hardware takes them. The company is called Call to Recycle, with the digit 2. Go on their website. They also have a locator for where you can get rid of them. I'm not going to get into e-bike or e-vehicle batteries, but they're coming and it's a huge issue. Okay. I think that's all. Those are the important things. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. This is great. I'm happy to do these anytime if you want to do one in your town. That's what I do. So I'm happy to, and I'm also always happy to answer questions. Email me, call me, whatever, and I'll try to get you an answer.
I will send your email in the follow-up video or email, tomorrow, and I'll send the video recording link as well to anyone who was here and who couldn't make it. So thank you so much.
All righty. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.